School Board to order on June 22nd, 2026. We'll stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The mission of the Foley Public School is to bring together students, parents, staff, and community to provide a quality education with an emphasis on developing the full potential of the individual. I need a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Hold on 1 second. We have to make some changes to the agenda, I'm sorry. We need to move number 13 to number 8, and number 21 to number 9. So if I can get a motion with that, those changes, Ryan does need to leave after his portion is done tonight.
Motion to approve with the proposed changes.
All members in favor?
Aye.
Approval of, actually, I'm going to add one more thing to that. How should I do that? Can I add one more thing to the agenda?
We just have a motion for this amendment.
Okay, we'll have to make a motion to amend. I do have a statement that I need to read before the routine with this. So can we make a motion to approve that?
So we'll make a motion to amend the agenda to include this new statement.
Okay, and a second. Okay, all members in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
that?
I'll do that. Okay, so to the community members and to all the board members, just so to the community members, the board is aware of the concerns in the community that regarding the attorney fees for 2025 and 26 school year. The board and the administration are working together and are cost conscious and involved in the district attorney only when necessary. Legal counsel is typically brought in when the district needs assistance complying with nuisance in state and federal laws such as Minnesota Government Data Practice Act, the Open Meeting Law, the Individuals with Disability Education Act, and the Minnesota Human Rights Act. Legal counsel also assists in responding to complaints, threatened complaints against the district in the state agency or state agencies or state and federal court. In some years, there's very little attorney involvement and attorney fees are low, and other years they're greater and there's a greater need. For example, this year, the district experienced a significant increase in data requests, in particular compared to previous years. I want to ensure the community that the board and the administration are very well aware of the ongoing legal fees and are working to minimize them to the extent possible, while also ensuring the district remains compliant with applicable laws and policies. The administration has been working with our insurance carrier to get reimbursed for any costs that fall under the scope of our insurance policy. At this point, I'll take approval for routine business items, which include consent agenda, board bills, and approval of meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All members in favor?
Aye.
Resolution for accepting gifts. So we have Peter Whitmore, deep chest freezer for the student council for the Foley Intermediate School, and Good & Company for $500 for the fishing club, Jazz and Hill Nationals. Thank you very much to those who donated. Can I get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
All members in favor?
Aye.
Okay, update on general obligation facilities maintenance bond. Ryan, that's you.
Thank you. Well, good evening. I'm Ryan Fetters. I'm the business manager here at Foley. The first item, I have many tonight, but the first is an update on the proposed bond issuance that we have. Sale in July for a closing in August of a $240,000 general obligation bond. It'll be paid out of LTFM revenue. This is for our indoor air quality project that we have. So this is a small, just about a 3-year term bond that is being issued in order to finalize and finish off the remainder of the costs for the project that we have for that. And again, we've talked about this in previous meetings, and it has been authorized by bond resolution a number of months ago. This will not be a tax impact of the way that we're financing this through some additional funds that we have on hand. We're able to keep this tax rate neutral. And so the plan would be to issue these bonds again in August and have approximately $388,000, which includes other monies that we have set aside in order to go towards the project. So with that, I can take any questions on that. I just want to see if there was anything else.
So
Yeah.
this is the final step then on when we discussed the financing, I think it was probably March or April. And we said this is our plan, we'd ask for a plan to be tax neutral, how would we fund things. Is this the final step of all of that?
Yes, is that to me? Yes, yes it is. That's the final step in the process, and these will be sold as what's called because of the nature of the small term, so the short, $240,000 is a relatively small amount of money, and it's a term of about 3 years. So we're taking requests for proposals. Our municipal advisor is Ellers. They're reaching out to many area banks, including Franson and Falcons, among others, to get a interest rate schedule for this bond. And then from those results that they tally, the lowest cost overall to the district will be the winner.
So this is just a discussion item. We
Just
don't
an
have to
update.
make any action.
No,
This
no.
is what you
We've
approved
already-
in
Yeah.
December, I believe.
Any other questions from anybody?
When you say other funds that you have set aside, what,
Hold on.
oh, sorry.
It's, you are able to ask that at the end when it's time for
Oh, I thought
community
you
to
said there were any
speak.
questions.
That's for the board.
So we
Yeah,
have,
for the board.
Oh,
that's all right, I can go ahead and answer that right now as part of this item. Oh, no,
No, this
Oh,
is, it's board question.
sorry.
26-27 adapted budget presentation, discussion and action. Ryan?
Thank you very much. So there's a presentation here. So tonight what we're doing is proposing the fiscal year 27 budget in this presentation. So first slide here is there's some overall changes within Minnesota school funding. They're important to mention before we get into the actual specifics of our budget. So number one is that the general ed formula, the allowance per pupil, increased by about 2.7%, so that each student is worth, each student's amount allowance generates approximately 7,682 per adjusted pupil unit. That's a weighted form of student count, and is what's used in the formulas that the state calculates for what types of revenue. In addition, some of the SPED funding changes, the state's reducing funding for transportation, and so in 25, fiscal year 25, we had 100%, and then it's gradually dropping off, and so in fiscal 27, we're expecting about 90% of that. The third item is summer unemployment for hourly workers, and so in talking with the state, we understand that in terms of the funding, it's 100% funded by the state for this summer, and then for next summer, we're estimating at the time, it's kind of what's left process after they're finished, so we're estimating about 80% of that will be funded by the state. Then also effective as of January of this year is the Minnesota paid family medical leave. So this is a payroll premium or tax that's based on the salary. So the rate is 0.88 8%. So at least half of that is paid by the employer, so the district is paying half of that, and the employee pays the other portion. So we're anticipating, based on that ratio and that rate, that it's approximately $67,400 is the estimated impact for the district for that additional fee that we're paying. For our adopted budget tonight, we had many conversations with directors, principals, and other stakeholders involved with the budget process. And in determining these assumptions, we had to be thoughtful about prices and the other things happening in the economy. So to start with, the most important number for us is students, ADM. So our fiscal year 27 enrollment, we're projecting it for the budget to be approximately 1,822 of ADM. So that's a decrease of about 13 from what we were using in the fiscal year 26 revised budget. Compensatory revenue is projected to decrease a little bit by about $30,000 from fiscal year 26. And then looking at the cost of fuel, we were mindful that diesel is expensive, so we've increased the cost of fuel, diesel by 6% from what we're anticipated to have paid this year. In addition, the district participates in services with Benton Stearns Education District Facility, and so they're going to have a new space that they're looking at, and so our share of the cost that would be associated with that with the other member districts is approximately $109,000. So that is another expense we had included or budgeted for. Our budget includes the planned use of restricted fund balance. So we have certain fund balances that we get, or funds that we get, and they can only be used for certain items. So certain buckets for certain things. We can't just use any dollar for any purpose. So over time, we built some balances in these funds. One of them would be long-term facility maintenance, for example. So for deferred maintenance, that's one. Another would be operating capital. These have certain uses, and we can only use those dollars for equipment, repairs, and whatnot. So we are spending down some of those balances that we have. So in the budget tonight, you will see that there are revenues and there are expenditures. And our expenditures are higher, what we're showing here, than the revenues. But that's because we have additional funds, so it's an annual revenue that's coming in that we're looking at when I say revenues. But we have funds set aside that have to be used for certain purposes, and we're spending down those accounts to offset those expenditures. So that's a point I just want to make sure is clear. So we're using funds that we have set aside for certain equipment, and including the IAQ project. So that would come from the bond proceeds that were issued. We had a bond issued in 2025. Total general fund expenditures are budgeted at $26.93 million, and that's an increase of $737,000 compared to fiscal year 26. And again, like I said, the increase in this, the expenses of revenues, is a one-time capital expenditure funded through those restricted reserves and bond proceeds. And then for general fund revenues, those are budgeted at $26.48 million, and that's a decrease of about $99,000 from the fiscal year 26 revised budget.
So Ryan, if I could just connect some dots, maybe for anyone who aren't. On the previous slide, we showed about like pupil, rate per pupil, basically, right?
Yes.
So what that connects to on here is when we go to the ADM, and those are the important two dots to connect, right? Like that we get X here per pupil, and we base our budget primarily then on enrollment of 1822. Am I connecting those dots correctly for everyone? Okay.
Yes.
And because that is how most of our funding comes for our school is from the state funding based on state aid based on the formula. So when we look at the previous slide where it says the allowances per pupil is 76, almost 7, not quite 7,700 per pupil. And then you look at how many pupils we have. That's why those numbers are important. So that's why we always call it the budget and enrollment report, obviously, because of these things. And it's not like they look at us, it's a daily thing, right? How many pupils do you have today is kind of the magic thing, like we have this many today.
We have key points throughout the year we put in the reports that those items.
All right, so yeah, so that's how those two slides really connect for anyone who is not sure.
Thank you, Patrick. And then on this slide here, we're looking at, so Patrick talked about one of the aspects of the revenue, so there are others. The largest component of our funding comes from the state aid. It's about 85% in these pie charts showing the breakdown of the revenues received versus how we spend the money. So we also have about 2% of federal funds that we receive, and then it's also very important to mention that we do receive property taxes, but it comprises only about 11% of our total revenue budget. And then we have other local fees, interest, and other things that comprise about 3%. And then on the expenditure side, our largest component is our salaries and wages and employee benefits. So the salaries and wages comprise about 57%, that blue section of the pie. And then the red section is the employee benefits for another 22. So we're looking at about 77% of our budget, our expenditure. Oh, excuse me, 79. I can't add in my head. 79 is the portion of the pie right there. And then as well for 12% for purchase of services, and then 5% for supplies, then we have another 3% for equipment, and other expenditures is a very, very, very small amount, which shows us it.
What I think is really interesting about these charts is you see that basically the state aid covers basically just the employee piece of the school. It doesn't, there's a little bit more from the state aid, 85% and that's 79%, but not by much. So those are very even things, which is why then those other sources of revenue are so important to us, obviously, and the expenditures and the other things, we have to match those two other pieces.
And then in terms of the ADM, and we talked about the reason why it's important, because that means dollars for the district. This next graph or chart is a look at how our ADM or enrollment has been trending over time. So we can see that back in 2022, we had about 1,915 students, but we have stabilized over time right around 1830, 1835 for this year for the revised budget, and then for the proposed budget, we're estimating about 1822. So that all impacts the state aid that Patrick's talking about.
When you think about it, that's like 100 students, so just do easy math. 100 times 7,600, that's a very large chunk of change for our school. And so just to bring this around, this is actually why open enrollment is really important to our district, because if a student, say, comes from Malacca and they enroll here, well then we're going to get their dollars that are associated with them. Just like if a Foley student decides to leave and go to Malacca, then Malacca gets those dollars. So that's one of the reasons why we watch the enrollment, and we're very we want students to enroll here to that point, because to have that happen.
Patrick's stealing all your thunder today, right?
No, that's okay. I'm happy to have the.
I'm trying to I'm also trying to speak nerd for translate the nerds for everyone.
You also have to remember, like, the city of Foley has not been able to expand for the last 20 years, and now in the next few years, we will be able to have extra houses coming into the community, so that's a positive thing.
More room for kiddos to come, right? Fantastic.
And of course, our online program is another way. If a student does our online, then those dollars would come in too, correct? So, student from Sauk Rapids decides to do fully online, they would count towards that amount. Okay, thank you.
Then this is a chart showing the unassigned fund balance history. So the unassigned fund balance of the general fund is the portion of the general fund that is really a good metric for the health of the district. And so what it is we look at the balance that's not obligated for something in the general fund. We divide that by the total expenditures in the general fund, and that's how we come up with this percentage. So our formal policy for the district is to have a 12% unassigned fund balance. And so over time, you can see that we've been above that, we've dipped below, and now we're back at right around the 12%. So in 2023, we're at 13.3%. We dipped down in 2024 and 2025, and then with the revised budget this year, we're anticipating the end of the year out at roughly 12% again. So with the proposed fiscal 27 budget, we're trying to keep pace with that, and that's what the budget does. It's pretty flat in terms of revenues and expenditures overall when you look at just the general fund.
And if you compare the chart you're showing now with the one you just showed, you can see when it goes down is when our enrollment started to drop. And so to bring it back up, even though enrollment is going down, we all are very aware of the cuts our districts have made this past 2 years. We just did our third round this past year of cuts. This is the real-time numbers, basically how you can see when this starts to happen with the enrollment going down, and we're all dramatically aware of levels of inflation on goods and services that we've needed. So these charts match perfectly. So the fact that we actually did stabilize back in 2022 inside of 3 fiscal years, I think, is something that shows that there was a lot of hard work and decisions being made, and I think that is something to be commended.
The next slide, so let's start at the bottom here, the total of all funds, because this is where I was talking about the revenues are less than the total expenditures. So I want to explain why that is. So the total of all funds, and these are the amounts, the revenues and expenditures that the board will be considering for approval tonight for the fiscal 27 budget. That's the purpose of the meeting. So the total revenues of all funds are approximately $32.6 million, and the expenditures are higher than that of $37.4 million. And I'm going to go through the items and explain why that is. Okay. The major reason why, and I'll just point to a few. The major reason why we're showing higher expenditures is if we look at the construction line here in the middle, we have expenditures of roughly $4.9 million anticipated to come out of that account. This is money that came from the bond and is sitting there already. So we're going to spend that down, but we have to account for that expenditure even though we already have the money and we're not getting that this year. So that's why the expenditures are higher. That's an example of why the expenditures are higher. Another very important reason is with the general fund. You can see at the very top, this is the operating fund. It's the most important, one of the most important funds, or the most important fund for the district. You can see we have revenues that we're projected to budget, or to get, that we budgeted for at about 26.4, but we have expenditures that exceed that at 26.9. And the reason that is because we have buckets of money that have specific purposes that can't be used for other things that have gained over time balances, and we're using that balance to offset this. And that's why in the general fund you're seeing higher expenditures than revenues. Does that make sense? Okay, all right. So going through this, the general fund, we have revenues of $26.4 million, expenditures of $26.9 budgeted. For food service, we're looking at $2.1 million of revenues versus $2.16 million of expenditures. Community service, so food service is our child nutrition program. And then community services, we have $1 million, we'll call it $70,000 in revenues anticipated, and then we budgeted $994,000 for expenditures. The construction fund we talked about, this is also the $220 is the, in revenues is the bond that we're going to issue, the small bond we just talked about at the beginning. So that'll go towards this project, as well as there's the $4.9 million that we have in total to spend on construction for the IAP project. The debt service, the total debt service, this is what we levy for to finance and pay back the principal and interest on the bonds that the district has issued. And so we have revenues of $2.215 million, expenditures of $2.24 million. There is a fund balance in the debt service. So when we levy for it, the state allows us or requires us to levy a little bit more to make sure that with tax delinquencies and possibly the shortfall of when we receive revenue, that we have a balance there to make sure we can cover the payment. So that's why the revenue is a little bit less than debt service. Then for custodial, we have just expenditures of $18,000. We've got internal service fund where we've got $119,000 revenues and $113,300 in expenditures. An OPEB, revocable trust, therefore retirement of $400,000 in revenues. And again, all of these revenues together, the major funds, we're at $32,604,038 budgeted for revenues, and expenditures of $37,402,242 of expenditures budgeted for the fiscal 27 budget.
Can you explain for anyone watching what OPEB revocable trust is? I think everything else is kind of self-explanatory, but we had an acronym.
So OPEB is other post-employment benefits. So these are the types of things that when someone retires, after they retire from the district and they qualify for that, if they qualify, that there is money set aside to help the ongoing payments for that. Oh, that's a great question. Thank you. And this last page was just, the only difference here is we took out the construction fund, because that sort of skewed the numbers a little bit with that 3.9, to show that the variance in the total end at the far right is still 78,000, but again, it's more than covered by the balances we're paying of those restricted funds in the general fund, LTFM, operating capital, and some others. Are there any questions about that?
Any questions?
So, it's always me. But what we're talking about doing tonight is the proposed budget for fiscal 27. Now, you talked about revised budget for 26. We're going to revisit this again in about 6-ish months, 7 months. Is that correct?
Or less.
Or less. And we're going to have a revision to this. Things that cause revisions in our budget is obviously the big one is enrollment. And that's why every month we see the enrollment tracker, right? To see where things go up or down. Hopefully go up. The biggest cause for a miss on budget is going to be enrollment. That's got the biggest impact. Hopefully the impact is good in that we have more students, maybe more joining our online program, maybe more come in than we anticipated and budgeted for, in our class numbers, whatever it could be. But in previous years, that revised budget has been because of enrollment decreasing below what had been our target in June. And so that's, the budget process is a lot of different moving pieces and a lot of it based on enrollment.
It's also the timing of estimates and revenues. Minnesota school finance is extremely complex, and so there's the timing of when information is available. So this is our best calculation with the information that's available now as to what we think is going to be received based on that information. So it's a plan. Plans can change, and to Patrick's point, the budget revision process, the purpose of that is throughout the year, once we begin fiscal year 27, that more information will come in, and that's the time at which we start tightening down and figuring out the exact revenues and the exact expenditures that we have. So that's the whole purpose of the revised budget process, is you have more information and revise the plan that we have now. It's a good plan, but we need more information to move it forward.
Thank you very much, Ryan, and thank you for indulging me.
Oh, absolutely.
Anybody else have anything? I need a motion to approve the 2026 and 2027 adopted budget presentation. And a second?
Second.
All members in favor?
Aye.
Ryan, you're up again for the
Oh, Ryan.
budget and enrollment report.
Fantastic, repeat. Well, okay. Well, thank you for sticking around. What we have is the update here. It's hard to see up there, but thankfully I have a copy here that I can see to. So what I'm giving now is the update of what we just talked about, the revised budget process. So we're comparing where we are to date as of May 31st of this year in the revenue categories and expenditures. So far, if you remember the pie, we had the state, the federal, property taxes, and local fees. That's that revenue pie. So to date, and there's more information coming because we'll have June's information and whatnot, but we have about 86.8% of the revenue from state aid collected so far. And for federal revenue, we received about 43.3% of that, so there's more coming, and we'll get that very soon, as well as property taxes. We'll have some property taxes here in June that are going to come through. So there's more revenue to be accounted for. The expenditures. So expenditures by object class. So again, that other pie that I had about how we're spending the money. Salaries and wages, those comprise the largest, that with employee benefits, comprise about 79% of the pie. So we received on both of those just about 80% of the salaries and wages, or excuse me, expended about 80% of the salaries and wages, as well as the employee benefits thus far as of the end of May. And then for purchase services, things that we have contracts for, various services that the district purchases that we don't do internally. We've spent almost 100% of that as of May. For supplies, we're right around where we need to be for the revised budget there. We're just over at 106% on supplies, and then equipment as well. We are just getting close as we're at the end of the year, right to that 100%. So we're at 94% there. And then we've got some other expenditures that so far about 60,000 of total. You know, we've budgeted about 65 of those expenditures. And then on the other funds, so other important funds that we talked about tonight are food service. We've received about 81% of the revenue. On the expenditure side, we've spent about 77% of what we budgeted in the fiscal year 26 revised budget. For community ed, we're at 78% of revenue received, and we've spent about 80% of what we budgeted. Community ed, we're at, food services at 81%, community ed is at 78 and 80%, excuse me. Construction, we talked about construction, where you can see that outside is going on. So we've spent what we've budgeted thus far on construction. Thus far, let's see, expenditures about 2.3 million year to date. So we're right there, and you can see because we're getting into the next stage of this and talking about this additional 4.9 million and additional bond that we have more to spend yet this summer. So then we have the debt service that we've essentially spent with our January payments for the principal and interest. And then for custodial, we've got about, we're right at, or just a little bit above where we had budgeted for expenditures of 18,000. And then for internal service fund, we're right at about 115% of what we planned. And then looking at overall, we've spent this far about 85% of our budget that we planned for, and we collected about 78, almost 79% of the funds that we had planned to collect this year. And that's the update for May.
And that collection will continue on to the new fiscal year if they bring us the last 10% or
Yep.
so in July, August, September.
Right, and it'll be coded, yeah, coded for this year. Right. So the spending variance that we have towards the end, where it looks at what we've received versus, or what we've expected to see and receive versus what we spent, it'll narrow because everything will come in and everything will be spent at the end of the year.
And we'll have a weird overlap moment where we'll be starting to get funds for accounts for fiscal 27, where there's funds for other things coming in delayed for fiscal '26. And so that's,
Right, 'cause
I'm
we
glad
get-
not me working on that.
yeah, 'cause we get 90% of our funds throughout the fiscal year, and then the last 10% comes in July, August, September, October, sometimes November.
Right, and just clarification on our fiscal year. Our fiscal year begins on July 1. So, and then we finish on the following June 30th. So we're finishing fiscal year 26 on June 30th, and we'll begin fiscal year 27 on July 1. So we're different than cities and towns and counties. They're on calendar year. And that's because it coincides with our students and school year.
Thank you so much, Ryan.
Does anybody have any other questions for Ryan? Thanks, Ryan. Number 10, which is Minnesota State High School League resolution for membership for the 2026-2027 school year. This is a discussion item and action.
This is the annual approval of our district belonging to the state high school league, so that our students can participate in state high school league events. I recommend you approve this motion.
Anybody have any questions on that?
Anyone's curious?
Anybody
We
have
do
any
this.
questions on it? Do you have questions?
No.
So can we make a motion in regards to this?
I'll move we approve.
Okay, a second? All members in favor?
Aye.
Okay, resolution for general election relating to the election of the school board member, roll call vote. So this is,
Just a second, are we back to the Minnesota?
we are at,
That's it.
oh,
That's a
sorry,
resolution.
hold on one second. Resolution for establishing dates for filing affidavits of candidacy, roll call vote, sorry. I did the wrong one first. So, Sharon,
Yes.
Stephanie? Nathan?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Alyssa? Yes. And myself, yes. Resolution for general election relating to the election of school board members, roll call vote. Sharon?
Yes.
Oh, motion.
I'll make a motion.
Okay. Second, roll call. Steph, or Sharon? Make a second first. Okay. Sharon?
Yes.
Stephanie? Nathan?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Alyssa? And myself, yes. Okay. Identify official and authority, IOWA resolution. This is a discussion and action.
This is an annual approval of the school board to, it's usually the superintendent is tasked to be the identified official of authority to provide employees and others that, from other entities that are part of our organization, to get information from the state of Minnesota on our behalf. And so it's basically I give people permission to be able to get reports and so forth for the school district. So I recommend you approve this.
Anybody have any questions in regards to this? Make a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion.
Second,
Second.
all members in favor?
Aye.
Education, identity, and access management proxy board resolution.
This is the same, this is related to the Iowa, the identified official of authority. It's just a second person to be in charge of that, to be able to give people permissions if I'm not able to do so. In this case, it would be Kelly Gretzky. She has served in this role for the last year as well. It's normally the administrative assistant to the superintendent. I recommend you approve it.
Can I get a motion for that?
Motion to approve?
Second. All members in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Foley Education Assistance Contract 25, 2000, or 2025 through 2027. This is a discussion item with action.
This would be approving the secretary contract that was approved, that was,
This is the education.
oh, sorry. Okay. Educational assistance contract that was approved, that was negotiated by our committee and has been approved by the educational assistance committee. I recommend you approve.
Any comments from anybody on the negotiating team?
I want to say thank you to everyone. I thought, again, I've never been part of the union negotiations, and I always thoroughly enjoy just, I feel like it's a good chance for learning. And I thought all the discussions were really very collaborative, and I appreciate that. I don't have a measuring stick or anything to compare it with, but I felt very collaborative in the environment, and I appreciate that. So, it's never something that's fun and pleasant, but I think we made it as fun and pleasant as we could on both sides.
Take a motion to approve the Foley educational assistance contract.
Motion to approve the educational assistance contract.
And a second.
Second.
All members in favor?
Aye.
We'll take secretary contract from 25 through 2027.
And this is the negotiated contract, all these contracts were negotiated by the school board negotiating committees and the different groups, committees as well, and approved by their groups already.
Take a motion to approve the secretary's contract.
Motion to approve the secretary's contract.
And a second.
Second.
All members in favor?
Aye.
Child nutrition contract 2025 through 2027. This is the same thing that we did. They worked hard to get everybody's approved before the end of the fiscal year. I'll take a motion to approve that contract.
Motion to approve.
And a second. Second. All members in favor?
Aye.
Custodial contract 2025, 2027. Same thing. They did good. They got a lot of them done. Signed a lot of paperwork for today. We'll take a motion to approve the custodial contract for 2025 through 2027.
Motion to approve.
Second. All members in favor?
Aye.
A van driver contract 2025, 2027. Motion to approve. It's the same thing as the rest of them.
Motion to approve.
Second. All members in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Pay equity compliance report. This is a discussion action item.
So yes, the district is required to have a pay equity report sent in every 3 years. The last one that was sent in did not pass. We are expecting it to pass now that we made a change in the custodial contract. We added longevity as a step, which shows, and pay equity is to ensure that the different classes of employees throughout the district are, they are measured for the, how long. First of all, each class of employees is determined to be either more female-oriented or more male-oriented classes, and then they are compared to each other, and there's many different steps that are looked at and put into a testing format for the pay equity guides, but basically it determines that males and females have equal opportunities to gain funding and gain wages at equivalent or equal amount of opportunity. And so we changed one of the steps for the custodial, which should put us back in compliance.
Was this brought up during our audit? Because during our audit, it's not just budget, right? It's also compliance issues. Was this one of our compliance issues during?
I don't
It feels familiar, that's why I asked.
We talked about it during negotiation.
Maybe that's where I'm also coming in. Okay.
Is there any other questions in regards to this? Any board members?
So have they seen it now and said it's okay, or are we sending it to them and waiting for them to get back to us?
Well, it won't be, we can't enter it into the system and submit it until the custodial contract is approved, which you just did. And then we'll submit it this week and see if that's,
And they'll answer us.
yes.
Is it unusual for districts to be out of compliance, compliance with this particular thing in any way, or?
I'm not sure if it's unusual, it's happened, it happened at my last district,
Okay.
but we were able to make things a little different and change some pay, wages, and similar to what we did, and that us back in compliance. We just always have to make sure that we're thinking about those things as we negotiate our contract.
Thank you.
We'll take a motion to approve the pay equity compliance report.
Motion to approve.
And a second.
I'll second.
All members in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're going to go over policies requiring review, discussion. This is a second reading and call for public comment of the following policies. Policy 305, public implementation. Anybody have any discussion on that?
The policy committee met, I believe. I was unable to attend that, which we were on.
They did meet last, or 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago?
A little bit on that. Any,
No, I mean, I feel like that one we didn't really have much, a lot of them didn't, it was more just state recommendation and like statute, I think, but it wasn't like a lot of them did.
and when I read through them, that's what affected me. I was just curious if the committee had anything.
Policy 404, employment background checks. Anything on that?
Very minimal.
Okay. Policy 506, student discipline.
Very similar to what we have now.
The majority of them are just literally like very small changes from the state. Of what they require.
Policy 515, protection and privacy of pupil records. Same thing. Policy 610, field trips. Policy 707, transportation of public school students. Policy 709, student transportation safety policy.
This had more changes to it and would be different than what we have used for the last revision of this policy. In the past, our policy 709, related to the student handbook more, and the student handbook had much of the bus safety rules listed in the student handbook. They're similar to what we have now, or what this is proposing.
I've seen that there was some changes on that.
Yeah,
So does that mean that the stuff that, the kind of things that were in the handbook are now part of the policy, whereas they weren't before? They're just staying referred to the handbook?
it's more, yeah, we talk more about referring to the handbook. And the handbook included, similar to what the policy of 709 would be, although there are changes. And 709 would be a policy. If you have it in the handbook, it's easier to change and make alterations to it throughout the year if necessary. With the policy, you're with it, for you need at least 3 months to get that change made, unless it's for an emergency. But then it would have to be reviewed again in the year. The changes that are being proposed would be a little more harsh or a little more strict, or penalties are longer.
Which means riding the bus is a privilege, it's not a right, and that we need to make sure that we're behaving on the bus.
Yes.
So,
Thank you.
any other questions in regards to the policies? Okay. Administrator, information and reports. Mr. Foss, do you have anything to report today?
Not really, I mean, in there I talked about graduation. Graduation is another one, of celebration of our seniors. I think we had 53 local scholarships for about $55,000 from local groups, families. So I just want to thank them for that, and so that's kind of the one thing I want to add.
How's your new office? Or your makeshift office?
Well,
Okay?
I'm getting to be housed in the elementary due to construction in the high school, and the elementary is much quieter in the summer. So, yeah, it's a little bit different. So hopefully I'll be back in my office in a couple months.
Mr. Hooper?
Nothing, no.
Mr. Whitman?
Also nothing that I thank you.
Mr. Inglis?
And I just want to say thank you to the Foley public school system, Foley community for fantastic 16 years of having the opportunity to serve in numerous roles. I'm starting as the head girls tennis coach in 2010 and becoming a teacher in the science department at the high school, several different roles in the high school and the activities director for the last 4. It's been phenomenal run, and I wish Foley nothing but the best, and I found myself using the term forever Falcon. It made a big impact on who I am, and I just want to, again, say thanks to everybody for the opportunities that were provided to me.
Mr. Jacobs, what'd you bring for us today? I see
Well,
map.
so I brought a PowerPoint presentation, and I know you're all thinking, where is this going to be? So, my PowerPoint presentation is, PowerPoint's supposed to be powerful point. So this is what my student summer workers have to do over what I call, well, let's just call it 12 weeks, I won't call it anything else. And this, so then what happens is, each room has to have this done. So when those kids go through all these rooms, they have to do this in every room. So I couldn't fit all that on the board, obviously. And then at the end of 3 weeks, and I am not an artist, so one of the student workers did this, I couldn't draw for Bill Beans. So because they made these 3 weeks, they're on top of things. I'll take them to Dairy Queen tomorrow. So we're going to Dairy Queen tomorrow. And then if they make the 3 more weeks, we'll go to a movie. And then the last, I always just wait because a lot of them start to drop like flies on me right about the week of August 3rd through 7th is when I lose a lot of them. So they usually don't make this goal because with high school being constructed, and I think I just heard my finance guy say something about, this is just a plan as to what I meant today. As construction happens, this will get really messed up as we get closer to hopefully finishing. So while there's some blanks, some of this stuff is one line item, but it takes forever. So furniture moving with only 10 people is going to take for 72 rooms. That's going to take a little while. So anyway, this was my rendition of a PowerPoint presentation. So, and they're really busted. I mean, there's no, the air conditioning units are off, everything's turned off, there's no airflow right now. It isn't like it is during the school year where you at least have air handler units. The construction guys stole my barn fan the other day, so it made it a little even warmer. So anyway, that's kind of give you an idea of what happened around here during the summer. The only other thing I was going to show you was, as this project's going on, trying to save money wherever I can. So one of the things that happens, and you'll notice, like, gee, Paul, you're not keeping up, all these bulbs are burnt out up here, right? So I knew in this project they're converting to all what's called LED flat panels, and those are just strip lights, no bulbs. So guess what they get rid of? Oh, about 1,000 bulbs, right? So one of these at Home Depot in a box of 10 is about $5 each, right? So I saved them all the LED ones, so that I can replace all these. That's why I didn't buy any bulbs yet. I'll wait till this project is over, but this, that's just part of what construction happens. They put those flat panels in because they're required by law for rebates and stuff. You can't just reuse these when you do construction. So I kept them all, and there's probably 1,000 of them, so at $5 a piece, that's $5,000 worth of bulbs I just saved. So if you need any at home, I might have some left over. So, because right now, most of you know, fluorescents got banned as of January 1st. I can't go buy fluorescents. So then you're forced to buy these more expensive bulbs. So then I kept, and you can't keep everything, but even these diffusers, these plastic diffusers, they're $25 each. So if a kid accidentally hits a ball with them and cracks them, I saved as many as I thought I could just to keep down on. Because this end of the building's probably never going to get taken care of, and not in my lifetime. So anyway, that was just to show you kind of what's going on. So, that's it.
Thanks, Paul. It's never a dull moment when you come around and
Yes.
show us what's going on in the world. Mr. Posthumus?
Well, you have my report. I just want to thank the school board and the staff and all the students in the community for a positive and successful school year. I know that there's been challenges, but I feel good about the school year that we started just a little over a year ago, and thank everyone for that. Our 2026-27 budgeting was more explained by Mr. Federick, and as we continue on with our indoor air quality project, that remains that we're going to continue to do everything we can to stay on target. I know already we're looking at some, we have to do some, or the vendors, the contractors have to come up with some plans to try to catch up, because there's already been some delays that we're going to have to catch up for, and those are things that they are in tune to. So in today's meeting, we found that they're going to have to do some catch-up work already. So they want to make sure that they get finished on time and so forth. So contract negotiations have been a long process. I thank everyone for all the hard work, the school board members, the associations and unions that have worked together to come up with these agreements. We will continue to meet. We meet with bus drivers still, and then all the individual contracts as well, and principals. And then I just explained the Iowa, or the individual with authority there at the bottom of the report. School board members, any questions?
Committee reports, I think that we're all pretty much on hold a little bit. Finance met today before the meeting. Building and grounds, do they have any meetings coming up?
We don't have any.
Okay. Benton Stearns doesn't have anything right now, Stephanie?
We had a meeting last week,
Okay.
and they approved the budget.
DAX is not going to be until October.
We're in that neighborhood.
Yeah. Health and safety, same thing, is off for the summer. Insurance.
I have insurance with my
Okay.
Brown
Yep.
and Table here.
We had a meeting
Just a
recently.
couple weeks ago, yeah.
Just kind of talking about those.
Okay. MSBA, no, nothing that
You know, they had a big proposal that they pushed forward through the legislature to have the permanent trust funds put on the ballot for
Yeah.
approval for this coming fall. That'll be, and they did get it on the ballot for this fall. This is for the permanent trust funds, the permanent trust funds took two sections of land for every single district in the state of Minnesota and put them together, and they're managed by the DNR. Most have been sold, much in the northern section is now It's all forestry and it's controlled and managed by the DNR. With those, that fund has grown quite a bit, and in the original law, they're only able to provide all this money that is generated from this goes to school districts. And in the original makeup of this, they were only allowed to provide certain amount of money from the fund to school districts. And this will be on the ballot to allow more funding to go to school districts from this fund. There won't be an increase in anyone's taxes. It's funding that's available there, and it'll provide us $30 to $40 per pupil additional. It's not a lot of money, but it's real money. So, MSBA is going to be talking more about this between now and November, and that's what that'll be about.
Minnesota State High School League, is there anything lately here?
The big thing that will be coming up in the next couple of months will be they're changing eligibility starting in the 2027-2028 school year as far as online students. And you have the opportunity to next year be grandfathered in, provided that you don't transfer the rest of your high school career. So they're compiling a toolkit at the moment that should be available in the next month or two for activity directors to be able to share with the administration and school boards. So as far as how that will look, starting in the 2027-28 school year.
Thank you. Policy we already talked about, and tenure and contract negotiations, we are in the midst of it, so. School board members have the opportunity to make comments. Stephanie? Sharon?
Our commencement ceremony was a salute to achievement. I thank our student speakers and Alyssa Schumacher for their positive messages. Thank you also to those who helped getting the school and program ready for this annual celebration. I want to thank the Legion for the presentation of colors. This ceremony was followed by the all-night grad party. Once again, thanks to Tina Hellman and her crew for making this event a special memory for our students. I want to thank the community for their tremendous support. Thank you also to the negotiation teams for their willingness to work within our budget. Thanks to Dan for leading this charge, Brian Fetters and Kelly for keeping us informed on the financials. Sometimes if you don't even have good things happening, you're going to have to make cuts and stuff. But if you are made aware of what's going on and truly have the information you need, things are easier. We had an insurance committee meeting. Our usage is high. We do have a 14% cap for next year, but we will be going out for bids again. Not only schools, but each and every one of us has to navigate the continued rising cost of health insurance. Our legislators truly need to work on a program that better meets the needs and pocketbooks of all involved. Aaron Casper and his crew do an excellent job again of making us aware of the market, and we continue to look for relief in this area. I want to thank our community ed for all the wonderful camps and opportunities offered to our students, and celebrate suffering. It's the best time.
Nathan?
Nothing planned, thank you.
Patrick?
Well, first off, I want to say thank you to Mr. Inglis for all his many, many years of service. He doesn't look old enough to have been here that long, so he must have started as a student. But thank you very much. You had one of my children, and he adored your class, and he was very excited when you became activities director. You got to do a wonderful job with it. I remember very specifically when you interviewed for activities director, there was a student committee as well. And the question put to the students was, how do you feel about losing Mr. Inglis in the classroom? And they said that it was going to be hard, but it was going to be worth it. And so I think that speaks a lot to you as a teacher and an educator beyond your role and administration. Mr. Jacobs, I just want to always say thank you for not just your presentation, but what I really see when I look at this is another educator. Right? Mr. Jacobs is running a summer class for the students who are privileged to work with him, and you go above and beyond with our students, and I want to say thank you very much for that. I want to say hooray for our marching band. They've got just a few parades left this coming weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They lucked out on some nice weather. It hasn't been terribly hot for them, but Ms. Hesh and Ms. Farley and our drumline instructors, color guard instructors put together an amazing show this year. Musically, I don't think they've done it better. We have the largest band we've had in years with over 60 members. For that perspective, we're usually hovering at around low to mid 50s. So the program is growing, so I want to say thank you to them for all the work that they're putting in. And finally, we passed resolutions today for election. I always encourage people to run for school board, but I also want to say that my first couple years on the board were very much an eye-opener. The board doesn't always do what you think it does, and it doesn't always do it how you think it does it. And so, if you're thinking of running for not just the school board, but for any, maybe talk to people who are doing it already and think, okay, so what's it really like? What's the real-time commitment? Sometimes when we're really hard up and trying to recruit people, we might not think, well, it's not that hard. But other times, the truth is, you heard the list of committees, right? And all of those are another hour outside of being here tonight that people do at minimum. There's emails, there's subcommittees, there's all sorts of things. So there is I'm not trying to say oh poor us or anything, but whoever is on the board, it is a time commitment, and it's very rewarding. And it is also, you do learn so much as a board member. It really isn't, I think, what I thought it was. I think it's better. So please, I hope you run.
Alyssa?
I just want to wish luck to our Foley trap team. We go to state tomorrow. There's 64 kids participating, so I just hope they do well. It's supposed to be kind of questionable weather, so I just want to wish them luck.
Eric, as I said before, thank you. Joel, thank you for the great graduation program. I also want to congratulate Janelle Hesh. She was Citizen of the Year this year for her hard work, and she was nominated by a community member outside of the school district in regards to all her hard work that she does with the kids all throughout the whole year. So congratulations to Janelle. Our next meeting will be on July 14th. July 20th, sorry. July 14th through July 28th is a period for filing affidavits for candidacy for the office of school board members for Foley Public School. The location is in the district office. Kelly, is it a $2 fee for that? $2 fee for that. I recommend that anybody that wants to be a part of the school board, that is your chance to sign up. Otherwise, check the local calendar on the website for any other events. I don't think there's much going on until August unless you're on community ed time. So any other questions or concerns or anything else that anybody wants to address? I'm going to make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.